Okay, good afternoon. We're going to get started on this session, Communicating in Canvas. If anybody has any questions as we go along, do please feel free to ask them either in Zoom or else in YouTube, and I'll try to get to them as best I can. If I do miss any questions, do feel free to contact us at tel.team@cit.ie, and we'll try to get back to you as quick as possible. Okay, so what we're looking at in this session is communication tools in Canvas. So we're all kind of aware how important communication is in general with our students, but particularly so at the moment when we're having to work remotely and having to kind of manage an awful lot of more communication perhaps than we would be familiar with if we were working on campus. The four tools that I'm going to give an overview of today are announcements, Canvas inbox, chat, and discussion forum. Now, we'll try to keep this session to the usual max 30 minutes, but it should give us enough time anyway to give an overview of these particular tools. We're not obligating anybody to use any of these tools. We did survey staff and students at the end of last semester, and communication was a big feature that came up in it. And one of the most common ways that we know that lecturers have been communicating with their students is via email. If this works for you, feel free to use it, continue to use it, that's totally fine. If you find it manageable, work away. What we're hoping with this session is to maybe show you what is available in Canvas, and maybe you might see something that you could use to as an alternative to email, or maybe you can use something to complement what you already do. Maybe you want to disregard all of it, but it'll just give you a bit of an overview of what is available within Canvas. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump over into a Canvas module, and I'll just kind of launch into everything straight away. So I'm logged in here in Canvas, and I'm just going to go to a module here that I have already created. So this isn't a normal academic module, so you might see some differences over here in terms of the menu, but it's close enough, I'd say, to what you have within your own modules. There's two things I want to point out just at the moment with relation to these modules and the communication tools. The first thing is that this module isn't published. So that's a big thing to consider before you kind of create any announcements or anything like that. If the module isn't published, students can't access it and therefore, won't get the notifications or anything like that. Also, if students aren't registered on your module, if you send out an announcement, they won't get the notification. They will, when they eventually do get registered, they will see it under this announcement section, but they won't get it sort of as a broadcast as other students would if they were actually enrolled in it. So it's just something to consider. The other thing to consider, and it's quite an important one, is the notifications for any of these communication tools. So you can be as well-intentioned as possible and do everything correct, but students and lecturers alike have the ability to change notification settings within their own accounts. So this is your individual account in Canvas. So it doesn't relate to a particular module, it's just your notification settings. So in here under account and under notifications, what you have is a lot of different options to personalize how you receive communications from Canvas and how frequently. So you have over here push notifications. So if you, for instance, have one of the Canvas apps, like the teacher student one, probably the teacher one, you can turn off the notifications that are kind of pushed out to you that would, they would appear up in your taskbar of your mobile device. So you can turn those off. You can see I have all of mine turned off. But you can customize them for particular categories throughout Canvas. So if you roll over any of the areas, if you're not particularly sure about what they mean, just hover over them and you'll see a little bit more information on that particular item. You'll see conversations here. This is related to the inbox, which I'll show you shortly. And then there's other ones related to announcements. So You can customize it so that you get notified right away, you get sent a daily summary, a weekly summary, or you don't get sent anything at all. So you might customize this based on the time of year as well. For instance, you might have more things turned on around exam time and maybe not at certain times of the semester. So this is all customizable, and it's customizable by students as well. So students could effectively turn off all of these, and therefore it might be a little bit more difficult for them to get notifications. One thing I do want to point out as well, because I know a notification went out this morning to all students, so I just want to show you what that looks like. So the TEL department, sent out an announcement to all students in CIT, and it just kind of is a good example of how notifications or announcements can show up for students. So I'm in my dashboard and you can see it's shown up here. Now this is quite a large one. If a student had a bunch of announcements, they would show up a lot more minimized. But it's quite prominent for the students there. So even if they have the notifications turned off to get alerts for it, when they log into Canvas, they will still see this information here. What we generally tend to tell people is that if you are going to use a particular communication tool in your classes, just maybe let your students know at the start of semester. So if you intend to use announcements, for instance, quite a lot, just kind of say to them, look, I will be sending out important information over announcements. Do make sure you have your notification settings changed based on that. So that's just something to be aware of there. I'm just going to click out of that because that's fine. Now I'm just going to go into my module again, and I'm actually just going to publish it as well, just so this is available now for me to send out any communication. I do have some test students enrolled on it, so we'll be able to kind of show you how that looks for them as well. The first thing we'll look at is the announcements feature here. So you'll see that it's a hidden item here at the moment, but that just means that there's no content. So I have no announcements created for this module at the moment. So if I click into announcements here, and I click on plus announcement up here at the top. So generally, if you consider announcements like a broadcast that you'd be sending out to students on your module. So typically, it would be used quite a bit if there was a change of classroom for a particular module, or a change of time for a particular module, or if a class was cancelled or anything like that. This is kind of a nice way of sending out the notification to your students. So I'm just going to add in my notification. So next week's class, so what I'm doing is I'm just sending out an announcement to my students, informing that the class has been cancelled, but then I'm directing them to do more. So I can send them some information about different items within the module itself. I can actually link to those different areas of the module. So say if I have a little quiz set up or something like that, I can say, well, look, class has been cancelled, but please do this quiz before I see you next week. What I can do is I can highlight an area, click on a link up here, module links, and that gives me the option to link to particular areas in my module. Now, I don't have much set up in this module at the moment. I think I have an assignment there. So what I can do is I can actually click on that and direct the students to a particular area of my module. In this way, your announcements can work quite well for you if you want to signpost, if you want to add signposts to your module for your students. So, what some people do as well is they kind of commit themselves to creating a new announcement every week for their students, just kind of giving an update on the week ahead or anything like that. Other people just use announcements for very important updates. It's really up to you how you want to use them, or indeed if you do want to use them, but they can be quite powerful to kind of get your message out to your students. You have all the usual tools available here. You can add images or anything like that. You can embed YouTube videos. You can also add an attachment. So say you want to, you'd say okay, this isn't this isn't exactly applicable now, but say if a lab has changed location, you can attach a map or anything like that to it. Yeah, you really have a lot of power in that. You can delay posting. You can have it posted at a certain time. Generally, the settings are okay, switched off like that as default. I'm just going to click on save now. And that now has been broadcast out to all my students on the module. One thing I forgot to say as well was you can choose the sections that you create the announcement for. So I'll just click on edit that again. Apologies for that, I forgot about it. So if your module is cross-listed, for instance, and you only want to send a message to a particular class group, what you would have here is the different sections. So the different CRNs would show up here. So you can actually send a message to a particular section in your module. This module isn't cross-listed. There's only one cohort of students, so it automatically goes to all sections there. Okay, now, if for instance you have groups set up in your module, and I think I have groups set up on this one, you can actually send an announcement to a particular group. Some of you might be aware that groups have their own sort of homepage within your module. So if I click here on people, I have some groups set up here. So I think if I go to labs, it should show me. Okay, so I have 2 students here in this particular group. If I click this button over here and visit group homepage, this allows me to create an announcement for this particular group. So it can be handy if you want to, you know, send a link to some information or anything like that. Say if you have a group doing a particular project or anything, you can make an announcement just to that particular group. So that can come in handy as well. So really, if you think about announcements as broadcasts, messages broadcast out to your students, that might be a good way to distinguish them. Okay, that's actually still hidden there, but that's available there. I think it's because I have it hidden in my navigation, but that'll show up anyway for the students, and it'll be available, as I said, in their dashboard as well when they go into it. The other thing I want to show you is the inbox over here. So you might hear this referred to as email within Canvas. It's not strictly email, but it does sort of look a little bit like it, I suppose, and it does act a little bit like it. It is also referred to as conversations. If you're looking at any Canvas articles or anything like that, this is what they're referring to. Or indeed in your notifications, conversations is this area here. You'll notice that it's over here in your global navigation menu. This is your black menu here. So that means that this button is available to you no matter where you are in Canvas, no matter what module you're in. So if I click here on this, this has kind of messages that would have been sent through this inbox, through this conversations tool in Canvas to me. They come from all different modules because you can actually select up here what module you want to target in order to kind of send your message out. So this can be quite handy if you want to, say, communicate with another lecturer that's on your module or anything like that. You see I have a message here that was just from Shane on a particular module. If I click on that, it shows up here. I have a message here that I just created with my test student. So this is a message with all users on this particular module. And then the student themselves has sent back a message to me saying, thanks, I'll be late as every GP appointment. So the inbox can be used for messages that are a little bit more private. You might still have students that will send an email because they kind of can't distinguish between this and email, and that's fine as well. But maybe if you wanted to use this tool, you could show them in a class how it's actually used. If you want to create a new message, you can either click up here and select your modules. If you click on all modules, it's any enrollments that you have on Canvas. Your favorite modules are those that are on your dashboard, so anything that you've starred and put on your dashboard. And then you can kind of select them down here as well. The other thing you have as well is you've got categorizations. So if I click here, I've got my inbox, I have any messages that are unread, I can kind of filter them that way. I can, any ones that I've starred, any ones I've sent. I'm not going to show you the archived one there either because there are messages in there from students. And then what you have here as well is submission comments. So if a student has commented on any submission that they have, that'll get kind of filtered in that area as well. So if I want to create a new message, I can click here on this little icon up here. I'm going to select the module, and I think I have, I'm going to select this one actually, e-learning authoring, and I'm going to choose who's on it. So when I click this little icon here, this kind of address book icon, it shows me all the people that are enrolled on that particular module, and they're in different categories. So we've teachers, students, the different sections. So if they're cross-listed, the different sections or the student groups. So I'm just going to click here on teachers, and I can either choose all teachers, or I'm just going to click on Shane there, and I'm just going to send him a message. So say you want to say, are we okay to do presentations on the 30th or something like that? And I'm just going to say test message there, because I haven't told him in advance. And what you can do as well is you can attach anything to it, and you can also record audio or video directly into it. So this might be handy if you're using this tool on your mobile device. You can kind of quickly send a message into that, and it'll save there. So I'm just going to click on send, and that will show up in Shane's inbox there as well in his module, his Canvas module. If you have a new message as well, you'll see that there's a little icon here alerting you that there's a message in there as well for you to check. So as I said, it can be quite handy if you have students that want to kind of just let you know something like that they have a GP appointment or anything like that they'll be missing class. And it also just kind of keeps everything within the one kind of place within your Canvas module. What some people do, I know, is that because it's available throughout their modules, they actually open it up in another tab and have it available here, or open it up in another window, have it available here, and then have their module open next to it. And they kind of maybe, if they want to send a message about a particular module, they can kind of have the two windows open as well. So it's just a little option that's available for you. Okay, the next thing I want to show you, I'm just going to go back into my module here. The next thing I want to show you is this chat feature. So this can be kind of a handy tool for you for real-time communication. So I know it seems a bit frightening to some people because it sounds a little bit more overwhelming. You know, it sounds like, oh, people can just send messages all day long inside this. But I think, like with all of the communication tools, if you say to your students, you know, this is how we're going to be using the communication tools within this module, it'll kind of help guide them into what's appropriate and what's not. The module chat shows up quite linear. I have here a message from a student, a test student that I've created. You'll notice that the student is commenting on everything within this module. It's the one that I used for all the examples. But basically what this does is it shows, much like WhatsApp or anything like that, or your text messages, it shows everything in a chronological order. And you can comment as well. And it shows everything very linear. One way that this feature can be quite useful is if you want to open up for a Q&A at a particular time. So say you want to have office hours or anything from 3 to 3:30 on Friday to answer any questions about an assessment or something like that. What you can do is you can direct the students to chat, and they can ask the questions there, and then you can reply to them. So if I want to reply to Mary, I can say, it's worth 20%. And I can send that. You'll notice that because I'm an instructor on the module, I get this little tab here to say that I'm an instructor, and it just distinguishes the users when, particularly if you have a lot of kind of questions coming in, so it kind of highlights your answers there. One thing to note as well, students can't delete their chat messages, and all of the chat history remains in the module. You as an instructor, you can delete the messages. So if you hover over this here, you'll see that there's a little icon here, a trash icon, that you can actually delete it, and you can do the same for the students' comment here. You'll see it's time-stamped as well, so it'll just end up being kind of a scrolling list of messages there within that section. If it is something that you want to use, you know, you can direct students to it. As I said, you can make it, you know, you can say, look, I'm available to answer questions in chat at particular times. If it is something that you don't want to use, feel free to hide it or just not engage with it. One thing that I know some people have done is that they've hid it from the module menu. And sometimes what they've done as well is they've kind of brought it out at particular times of year. So said, look, we're going to use chat now for this this particular session, and then hidden it again from students. If you want to hide any menu item from students, you just click here on settings. You go to your navigation, and then you drag it down into this hidden section down here. So if I want to hide chat, I drag it down here and just click on save. Okay, so I'm just going to put it back up there just for this session. So that remains available there for that. The last piece I want to show you, because there's just a little bit more to it, is the discussions area here. If anybody has any questions, do feel free to ask them, and I'll try to get to them as well. But as I said, if you want to ask them at the end of the session, or if you want to just send us a message on tel.team@cit.ie, we'll try to get to them as quick as possible. So the last thing I want to show you is the discussions area in your module. So unlike the announcements, which is sort of broadcasting a message, or the chat, which is more like real-time communication, or indeed the inbox, which is more akin to email, the discussions has a broader sort of application, really. What I've done here is I've created two topics under the discussion, just to kind of give an example of how it can be used with your students. So for instance, particularly when we're working remotely, and maybe this might be something that you want to do with a larger group of students, or maybe first years or anything like that, who might not know each other, you could create a welcome section and have a little icebreaker. Now, Grode last week, he sent out an email where he suggested some tips for teaching remotely, and one of them was, you could do a bit of an icebreaker with your students. So I created that here under this welcome topic. So if I click here, so this is just the example that Grode gave last week. It's something that is used quite effectively with the traditional online programs that we've been running, and it just kind of lets the students get to know each other. So the way that I've created this is I created a threaded discussion. So I'm going to show you that shortly. But if you just create a normal discussion in Canvas, it creates just a kind of a focused discussion down the page. So it works a little bit like the chat in the sense that it's all one after the other. But it can be kind of good for less of a discursive kind of task that you might give your students, where you might have just people responding to a question that you might have posed. So, less discussion amongst your class. So that's how that would work. This is a threaded discussion, and what that means is that if a student replies, you can see that the student has replied here. You can actually reply to that student, and it kind of nests replies into each other. And if you think of it like an organizational chart or anything, or a family tree, it kind of basically pulls sort of conversations out of an initial discussion. It all keeps it in this one area, but it sort of like adds a little bit of context to any replies that that might have been given for a particular topic. You can see here that the student can add text, they can add images, and everything, and they can actually subscribe to it as well. So that's one way you can do it. If I click back onto the discussions area here, you'll also notice that this is under an area called pinned discussions. So that means that if it's something that is very relevant over a particular week or over, a particular period of time, it can be useful to pin the discussion up here so it always remains on top and it doesn't get lost amongst the other ones down here. These would be sort of the active discussions over here. Students can obviously still communicate and discuss in this one. It just kind of highlights it a little bit more there. If you want to move it, you can unpin it, and then that shows up then in the main discussions area, and you can kind of minimize this using this little toggle over here, and all of your discussions kind of show up here. So if you want to pin it again, you click this little menu icon over here and click on pin. The other thing you might have noticed there in that little sub menu was you can actually close it for comments. So if you want to sort of, if you feel like it's run out of steam and you want to sort of archive it, I suppose, you can click on close for comments, and I'll unpin it as well. And that just puts it down into this sort of archived section for the students. So students can't add more comments to it, but they can still view it. It is available there for them. This one as well here, this assessment Q&A. So this is another example of how you can use discussions. You can basically use them think of them in much the same way as how you would have discussions in your live class, face-to-face class. You might have, you pose a question, you have people respond, you have people debate it and everything like that. You can do it all within discussions in Canvas. This is another threaded discussion that I have where I've kind of put up this comment, this topic, please ask any questions under this area. So rather than having maybe the chat option here where you have the real-time information, this is maybe a little bit more organized in terms of the questions and the answers that are given. One thing that does make it kind of useful as well is that when students can see each other's questions, sometimes they are able to answer questions for each other as well. So that can sometimes reduce maybe the time that you have to spend on it, but you still have oversight of it in case the wrong information is being shared, which is quite important. So you can see here that Mary again has asked a question under this topic, this Q&A topic. So she's asked a question here, and then I have been able to reply to her by just clicking on this reply button here. So it's kind of grouping these bits together and sort of adding context to it. If I want to add something that's separate to it, that's more related to the overall item here, I can just reply up here, and you can see it doesn't group them together. It kind of keeps them a little bit separate as well. So it just kind of shows you how threaded conversations can work in discussions. If you want to create a new discussion, you can just click up here under the plus discussions button up here. So if you want to give it another title, you can say, so say you want to have students discuss a particular guest speaker, a particular topic or lecture or anything like that you've covered. You can basically create an area for them to add their comments. And one of the nice things about discussions is you can actually grade them. So maybe you want to give 10% for their participation in the discussion area and how much they kind of participate in the class. So for this, I'm just going to say, put in more information here if you want it. Again, you're kind of posting it to all sections. So this will be different now if you have a cross-listed module. You can attach a file to it if you want. So say it has to do with the lecture that you gave, you can attach the presentation files or anything, or you can attach some relevant material here. You can also say, please have a look at this document and discuss. Here's where I would set allow threaded replies. So it, as I said, it kind of adds a bit of context, groups some of the replies together. You can also select this, users must post before seeing replies. So if you want to sort of encourage a bit of independent thought on it, you can click that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on graded. So that gives me more options. So a little bit like setting up your regular assessments. Points possible, I'm just going to put in 100. I can leave all of that. I can put it into a particular assignment group. So I've already created discussions, so I'll leave it there. You can add a new group here if you want. This just kind of categorizes things and it makes it easier for you to add weighting to your assignments in your Canvas module. We've more information on that in our guides if that's of interest to you. You can require peer reviews. So if you clicked on that, it kind of automatically assigns particular threads to students. You can do it anonymously as well, like that. So maybe students have 2 threads that they need to review in terms of comments or anything. So that's that feature there. And again, you can assign it to anybody. You can give it a due date. So I'm just going to say the 30th. Even though the guest speaker I've said is October, and I'll just leave the availability as it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to save and publish because I have it all set up as a graded discussion. And that shows up here, and you'll see there's a banner here that that notifies students that it is a graded discussion and that there are 100 points or anything. So if you wanted to say here in your description that this is going to be worth 10% or anything like that, that's where you'd put it there. So when I go back to discussions, you'll see that it shows up here and I can kind of drag it around in terms of the order, and I can put it up there under pinned discussions. So you'll see there's a little bit of a change of icon there, so it kind of distinguishes it from the other discussion areas that are available. The other thing I wanted to show you up here, because it might be relevant to some of you, is under the settings icon there, you can check it so it manually mark, to manually mark posts as read. So that would just mean that you actually have to go in and actively click that you've read them. The other thing as well is the student settings. So this could be hard to miss, or easy to miss, I should say. So one of the options is to allow students to create discussion topics. So they would be these topics here. So if you have that turned off, they can still reply to it, to the discussions, no bother. But it depends on if you want them to create discussion topics themselves. So sometimes this is more applicable in the groups. So in your group homepage, which I showed earlier in the session, you can have your individual announcements, but you can also have a discussion area. And maybe this setting is more relevant in that group discussion area where you're kind of letting groups of students maybe work away on one project. So another kind of way that people have used discussion forums is to get people to share research that they found, get students to share research that they found and have other students comment on it and maybe share other bits that they found that are of relevance as well. Okay, so that we're just gone a slight bit over, but that kind of covers the 4 sections that I wanted to go through in this in Canvas modules. So we had our announcements, discussions, inbox and chat. I hope that was clear for you. If you have any further questions, or if you want to kind of delve a little bit deeper into any of those areas, we do have more information here on our site, tel.cit.ie, and as always, our help articles here. So this is our TEL knowledge base. So down here, if you scroll down, you'll see a category, Canvas communication and collaboration. So that has more information about inboxes and discussions and everything like that in Canvas, to give you a little bit more guidance. Does anyone have any questions before we finish? And I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, if you want to add, if you want to ask a particular question, you feel free to email us at tel.team@cit.ie, and we'll try to get back to you as quick as possible. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions there. So thank you for attending the session. We'll have the recording available either later today or tomorrow morning, and it'll be available on our site under live training sessions and training videos. So you'll see that there are a number of videos already available there on particular topics for Canvas and for Zoom. Okay, thanks very much.